Ever had a conversation where you made a bold statement, then paused, tilted your head, and said, "On second thought"? Welcome to On Second Thought with Eric, Richie, and Bish Bates, where hot takes meet humble pivots, where leadership, life, and current events collide, and where it's perfectly fine to change your mind, out loud. Whether it's marriage, manhood, or the madness in the media, Eric and Bish bring humor, heart, and a little healthy debate, because wisdom lives on the other side of, wait, let me rethink that. This is On Second Thought. Press play and be ready to pause.
All right, so that was the intro I was trying to like figure out how to do with some sound and music and all that sort of stuff. By the way, you were looking frozen there, but you unfroze. So I was trying to work that out, but that's okay. We'll do it the bootleg way for right now. So in the words of Nate Bargatze, all right, here we go. We're doing it.
Sounds good, man. I liked it. That sounded great. Yeah,
I've tried. Look, I was doing it a lot when I was driving, like on the way back.
Yeah.
So it's not polished, but I tried. Next time we'll have
change your voice
with the that's me. That's how I do it, man. I change my voice all the time. You know what I'm saying? So long as you know, Yeah. All right. So on second thought, this is the first time we're trying to do a podcast, man. Are you excited? You nervous?
Yeah, I have no idea what we're getting into, but I always thought that our conversations are something that I thought others would be interested in hearing sometimes. I think we're not scared to ask the questions and to seek to understand, and I think this could be a great forum for that for sure.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think I thought the same thing, but just because you're like, you like enjoy sex doesn't mean you'll be a good porn star. You know what I'm saying? So we'll have to see if it like translates from, just doing it to putting it on for other people to see, you know what I'm saying? So, because I know I enjoy it, but I know I would be a terrible porn star. So
yeah,
anyway,
all right. That's your wife would tell me that. So I would agree, but I also think it's one of those things where, dang, we've known each other, almost 30 years. So
no, are you serious, dude?
Almost.
Has it really been that long?
Think about when you started back and we first met.
It was at Walmart, and Walmart was 2005. That's 20.
Was it 2020 years? Okay.
I was like, there's no way it was 30 years, man. I was like, that's got to be crazy. Yeah, 20 years. So it's 2005, something like that. Yeah. 2005, 2006 was my beginning time at Walmart. We started at the same time, right? Yeah. So
yeah, we started at the same time. We were in training class together, and I remember the trainer didn't get your humor. And I was still relatively new to management. I think I've only been doing it for a couple of years, probably before I should have. And I remember talking about how I would respond to a situation when we were role playing. And I think you were sitting a couple of seats down from me, and you just turned to me and straight up like, "Man, you're a dick. You know that, right?" And I was like,
did it start that quickly though? Like
it was. I think it was within a week of training.
Okay, that makes okay. I thought
a
you
week
meant
of training.
Like in a couple of minutes immediately, I was like, "You're a dick." I probably thought that, but I'm sure I didn't say that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but then you did. You were in front of the class.
Did I say? I don't remember
everybody, but I owned it because I thought that's how you have to lead. And obviously, I had a long way to go. Although it did turn out that was the Walmart way. They push you to be that way, actually. Even when I was trying to be softer, it was just to be harder. But that's how we actually became friends, because I thought you were the first professional, honest person that I've ever met before, who was willing to just call it out. And I respected that, because most people were either intimidated by me for whatever reason, or I never felt you really got the truth. I think our relationship came from you being honest and me owning it and having to rethink some things as I progressed professionally as well. And that's where, I used to check in with you on some things and try to understand it. And we went in different avenues, even within Walmart, different directions. Yeah. But I always counted on checking in with you on, am I doing this the right way? How should I be handling this? And then vice versa. It started to just be reciprocated. Well, we were both working and living in Baltimore. And now I've lived here in Dallas for over 13 years now, and we still continue to communicate pretty regularly. I mean, usually it's one-sided because your phone doesn't work calling out, but
it does. The call. I can answer calls occasionally, but the button that like makes them go out, it doesn't work. I try all the time. It just it doesn't work. It's not me not remembering the call. It's the phone that doesn't work. So yeah, you're
Yeah.
right about that. I don't think I remember that it's been 13 years since you've been in Dallas. It feels like it's
Yeah.
been shorter than that, actually. So
Yeah, I think it's because we make an effort to communicate, see each other. I mean,
Mhm.
after the first 5 years, I think we made an effort to we got to get together. That you came here. I think you came here first.
I
Actually, you
did.
had
I
a
did. I remember. I
business
guess still
thing.
got a
You came
picture from
here. So
when I think it was Isaiah was Isaiah or
yeah,
Elijah was really young. Which one?
Isaiah,
Isaiah.
Isaiah. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you came out here, and then I think it was shortly after the divorce. I needed to get out of the house, and
Mm.
we made an effort to. All right, well, we're going to meet and we're going to do something because you can't just keep sitting in the fetal position all day, or and that turned into an annual thing for a few years, so
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Was
Yeah.
that was the
So,
first one Vegas or was it somewhere
yeah,
else? The
yeah,
first
yeah,
was Vegas.
Vegas.
Okay.
First one. Yeah, yeah, that was Vegas. So it seemed to be great. So,
Yeah. 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 It was good.
but I mean, we had conversations just during that time that I was just ignorant about some life events, some things that were going on, whether professionally or personally,
Right.
just situations that I just was unaware of. What's the big deal? And I still hear that to this day, actually, is like, what's the big deal about Black Lives Matter? Why does that matter? Who cares? I mean, why is there still talk about it? Why is there still parades and events and stuff going on like that? And for whatever reason, it seems like it's always been directed to me just because I've
What do you
always
mean? What do you
had
mean it's been directed to? What do you mean by that? It's been directed
I
to you?
think people assume with me being white that I have a different stance or a similar stance to what they have, which is, yeah, why do people do that? And
Oh,
and I
oh,
and
oh.
I should be on that side of this is ridiculous as well. So why does it take so much time, so much oxygen? Why is everyone always talking about it? I think people forget that women had to do the same thing just to earn the right to vote. And Black people were segregated for way longer than they should have been, and they had to protest to get away from that. And now,
Even now, it's still an issue, right? Because if you look at the Zoom picture that we have, it has you on top of me. It knows that you're the white guy and then I'm the black guy, and it's putting you on top. I mean, that the systemic racism even built into applications like Zoom is nuts. You know what I'm saying?
yours is way bigger than me, though. Your screen's like this, and mine's like this. So I
As
think
long
it
as long as you
understands
as long as you know that. I mean, as long as you know that you're comfortable with that. You know what I'm saying?
the
But
weight of
still,
it.
yes, you put it on the table. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
it's out there. Yes. So it is systemic. It's everywhere. So, but yes, it is something that, yeah, I think our first real conversation about race came when I got pulled over in Baltimore and I didn't agree with getting pulled over because the officer pulled me over without a radar gun. She said she was just going with the flow and I was going too fast. And I pulled over on I-95 and got out of the car. And like, what are you freaking pulling me over for? Like, I came out like I was angry. And she's like, can you get
yeah,
back in the car, sir? And I was like, I want to know why you pulled me over. I'm going with everyone else here.
she said,
What's
"Sir,
the issue
okay."
here? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. She's like, sir, I asked you to get back in the car, sir. And I was like, fine, but I just want to have a conversation with you. Now I'm from Texas, and I did that in Texas a few times as well without the issue. Usually that we would have a conversation and it was fine. In Baltimore, I had to get back in the car, but I was angry. I think you were really surprised that I did any of those things with it. And I still got the citation, although when I showed up to court, I didn't even get into the judge. They said, do you want us to just reduce this? And I'm like, yeah, well, that's fine. I know I was speeding a little bit, so I'll just pay a reduced fine. You can collect your taxes. That was the last time I got pulled over in Baltimore. But yeah, you were kind of surprised by how I responded. And I thought how I responded was natural when I didn't feel like it
It
was
is
right.
natural when you're white. Yeah, it's like supernatural. You know what I'm saying? Like that. When you feel injustice, you're like, I'm gonna stand up for this shit. And then, but we're like, we feel injustice. One, we get it all the time, right? So you probably get sort of waterboarded by injustice, and so at some point it becomes a thing you're sort of used to. But also, we recognize that getting pulled over and whatever might come from that ticket is the least of our concerns in those moments, right? Our concern in those moments is not to allow it to escalate because it could end up with us getting killed. Sometimes with contributing factors on our end, sometimes without contributing factors on our end. So we just know that that's a challenge, and you have to operate very, very differently. What's funny is I know we planned to do this first one today, but I told you I was running this morning, and actually I pulled over on the way back. I had to drive about 2 hours away, and I got pulled over on the way back.
Were you
And it was
speeding?
because
Were you speeding?
So I was, but it was, I have a very, so I set the cruise control on 5 miles over the speed limit because a cop friend of mine said, if you go exactly the speed limit, that's suspicious. So go speed a little bit. Right. And so I was speeding a little bit on purpose to not be suspicious, but I did get pulled over, and he pulled me over because I don't have a front license plate on my car. I got it in Pennsylvania, and they don't require front license plates. So they didn't have a bracket on the front of my car. So I just never put it on there. And then I have, because it's an all black car with everything blacked out, and so I have a like a smoke or black cover on the back tag, and so he sort of fussed with me about both of those things. But anytime I get pulled over, all the windows go down, right? Because I have tints a lot of times, so but all the windows go down, and I don't unbuckle anything. I don't do anything. I just wait for them to come up. I don't look for nothing. I just sit there with my hands on the stair wheel until they come up, and then we had a conversation. He was a young guy. He was nice, and he was respectful, and I made some jokes with him. I tried to lower his I didn't want him to be worried about me because I didn't want some shit to pop off. But yeah, so but it is crazy the difference, right? I even see videos online. I see people sort of pop out the car and they're like going nuts, and I'm just like, bro, if that was a black person, they would be shot 3 times before that was over, right? It wouldn't be any of that. Guns would be out. And so we have to behave differently, and that's one of the things that I had to teach my son, and he told me that he doesn't always listen to it, but I had to teach him, like, this is how you behave when you get pulled over by the police, because your number one job in those moments is to live through the encounter, not to prove that you're right, not to argue, not to try to make your point. Your goal in those moments is to live through that encounter. We'll figure the rest of that stuff out later. But if you don't live, then that's the real issue there, right? So
this is part of the talk that you have, right? The talk is that, whereas the talk for us is the sex talk, your talk is the survival talk, how to survive a pullover.
Yes, because unfortunately, I've heard it said, but the young black men are an endangered species, and they are at times, especially in different parts of the country, and it's something that you have to just be on guard all the time. You have to be on guard all the time, and unfortunately, different people look at black men as a threat. And therefore, they react as if they are a threat to their lives. So it becomes this thing where, in normal encounters, in normal everyday world, circumstances, all of a sudden you insert a young black man into the circumstance, and all of a sudden people think it's a life or death situation. Young black man gets pulled over by the cop. Cop thinks it's a life death situation. I might die here, so I got to be on guard. And he does anything, well, I'm gonna react real quick, right? And so you're out somewhere and you see a black man, sitting in the car in your neighborhood, and all of a sudden you think he's gonna rob me. He's gonna do something. I need to call the police. I need to pull up on him. I need to ask him for his ID. Talk to him. And those are things that don't often happen, at least from what I understand, because I haven't lived in a body other than a black man's body, to other folks when they're sort of going through life. So, but it's one of the things you just come to sort of deal with. You get a little desensitized to it, I think, on some level, until you see the stark difference of how a white person, a white man could act, with cops, and you just go, shit, I would never ever think to do that, because it would not end well for me.
And I think that's the basic understanding of Black Lives Matter, is you should be able to talk to the police the same way I talk to the police, without fear of being killed or violence happening. And that's how I explain it to other white people, is that's the problem, is I can get out of the car and I don't feel the police are going to do anything but listen to what I have to say, or maybe not listen, but there's not going to be any violence that's going to happen. I have no fear of being shot. I have no fear of being taken down, because I'm going to do it in a respectful way. But I just didn't think that me being pulled over at that time was correct, and that's how I would handle it. But again, I have no fear of that. And I'm trying to make that stance, is Black people Mexican people, colored people should be able to get out of their car without feeling any threat or fear from the police, and which is something I didn't understand, again, until you and I started having conversations and realizing there's two different worlds that a lot of us don't know, whether you want to call it white privilege or ignorance or a misunderstanding. We're just unaware of that world if we're not talking or seeing it or around it, so yeah.
But the interesting part is you talk about being able to get out of the car, and we should be able to do that, but the truth is the bar is so much lower, right? Because, if we go back a little bit, before, the cell phone cameras were, all over, before body cams were a thing, it wasn't even a function of being able to get out of your car. the police would escalate the situation, right? Because there was almost no accountability associated with it, right? Cops weren't going to rat on other cops. And so if you had a rogue cop that was doing something crazy to black people or to minorities or to whoever, the other cops weren't going to say anything on them. And so they would turn these, what you would think would be routine circumstances. You're getting pulled over because the lights out. You're getting pulled over because, you have expired registration. Whatever the case is, you're getting pulled over for whatever the case is. And all of a sudden that turns into a thing, because if you are a black person, especially a black man, but a black person, what happens is they pull you over and then they go, do you mind if I search your car? Can you get out of the car for me, right? This is a speeding ticket. And now all of a sudden they're getting me out of my car, right? And then they go, well, can I pat you down for my safety? Well, you didn't have to pat me down for your safety if you just let me stay in the car. And so they just keep escalating and escalating and escalating, right? And then they go, can I search your car? And then you go, no. And they go, well, do you have anything to hide? Do you have any weapons? Do you have any drugs or anything? No. Well, then why won't you let me search your car? Right? That's what happens. Then you go, well, then I could bring the dog. I could bring the drug dog and we could sit here for an hour. You can just let me search your car. So now all of a sudden it went from I was speeding to now I'm sitting on the curb, I've been patted down, and they're trying their best to find a legitimate reason to search my car, right? And so that often is the difference between, in certain areas, right, a black person get pulled over and a white person get pulled over, especially a black man, is because you're seen as a threat, you're seen as a criminal, and so therefore they've already determined that. And so they're trying to find the justification that you actually are. You're a criminal. You're a black guy. You're a criminal. So it's in there. You're doing something wrong. I'm going to go ahead and find it, because that's what you all do, right? And so it's not even a function of, like, I'm not even at this point trying to look at, we should be able to get out of the car and act all crazy and it be okay. I'm just trying to get us to the point where the aggression is not on us. We can get pulled over and do the right thing and it turn out okay all the time, as opposed to some percentage of the time it doesn't turn out okay because they're the aggressor to us and they decide that we're a threat. And so the whole getting out of the car part, I mean, I think there is, I think the truth is that while we would like to be there, I just don't think we're there as a country, right? And so if you would see a black person often looking at circumstances that happened where, let's say, there was a shooting recently. Was there a shooting? There was something that happened recently. Oh, there was a guy somewhere who was recording, and he got punched in the face by the cop. He got punched. They broke the window. They punched him in the face while he was sitting in the car. Then when they got him out, they punched him again. They threw him on the ground. Right? They did all that stuff. And a lot of black people would say, bro, like you gotta just comply, right? Comply because the stakes are so high, right? You shouldn't have to worry or fear for your life, but that's the reality that we're in, and so you should comply. So oftentimes, in our conversation with each other, we will say, you got to do your part, to try to make sure stuff doesn't get escalated. But also the cops are supposed to do their part to not abuse folks, regardless of who the folks are, to not abuse folks. So oftentimes it's not a function of trying to be like, we should be able to, fight a cop, right? Black person fighting a cop, they getting shot. I've seen so many white people fight. I'm just like, what? Ain't no tasers out there. I'm just like, they just will take on a fight. But let a black person do something like that. But guns out, tasers out. At least tasers are out more now than it used to be. But it used to be just gun out. And all of a sudden, all these things are life or death situations, right? So a black person can make the same mistake a white person makes and they die as a result of it. White person can make that mistake and they get all the benefits of the doubt. And I think that we're looking for the ability to one, make no mistakes and it turn out okay. But two, to also be able to occasionally make mistakes and it still turn out okay. We don't end up it's not a life or death situation every time we do something wrong with the police.
Do you notice a difference if it's a white cop or a black cop?
So I personally have not had enough experiences with black cops to say I've noticed a difference. Most of the cops that I've dealt with were white cops. So I don't know. If I use videos that I've seen and whatnot, I've seen a lot of black cops they're cops. It appears to me when I see, again, but I'm also looking at videos that become viral, and oftentimes those viral videos are viral for a reason because something went bad, right? They're not showing hey, I got stopped and nothing happened. Those aren't the videos that you see, right? So, but of the videos I've seen, what I see is black cops being cops first and black second, right? And so they're protecting, protecting the line, whatever you want to call it, protecting the shield, whatever it is. Most important priority in those moments are being a cop, it appears to me, and their second priority is being a black person. And so they're blue and then they're black. They're blue first and they're black second. And so I don't know. I can't, I don't have enough personal experience to say I know exactly, I know what the trends are, at least in my life, because I haven't dealt with enough black cops in a situation where I was the target. to really know what that is.
So today, did you get off with a warning, or did you actually get a citation?
So I got a warning and a citation. So I'm trying to make sure I get it right. I got a warning for no front tag, and then I got a citation for the cover on the back of on the plate of the car. And he said he gave me a citation for the plate of the car because he said in 2023, apparently, I don't remember this, but I also don't remember much of anything. He said I got a warning for the cover on the back of the car. So he said that's why he gave me a ticket, because I'd already gotten a warning for it. So, I mean, the truth is, and I did say to him, I tried to be respectful. I was like, can I say something to you? I was like, my understanding is that not having a plate and having, they call it sort of an obstructed license plate, but having an obstructed license plate is not a primary offense, which means you can't pull me over for it. Right now, you got to be careful about being argumentative. So I asked for permission. I was like, can I say something? Can I, if you don't mind, can I say something? And he proceeded to say, actually,
I'm seeking to understand.
Yeah, he actually said, he was a reasonable person, but he actually said, I think he said no front tag is a primary offense, while the back one is. One of the two were primary, he said. And so I'll have to look it up and see if it is in fact primary. And I think he might have said it might have changed at some point where it became primary. Because I was like, I told him, I was like, I did my research, to verify that they were not in fact primary offenses. But I will say, though, I think my research was like Reddit or something like that. So maybe it's not great research. It's like somebody on Reddit said it was. So maybe it is in fact a primary offense.
So you were warned about not having the back cover. You decided to research it, and like, can they call me over again if I do nothing else wrong? Okay, so forget it. If I don't do anything wrong, I'm going to keep the back cover on that license. Okay, you made that choice. You're like, I'm
yes.
going to take research this.
Well, I did. I did it before I even did. So before I even decided not to put the front plate on, right? Because I just like the way it looks without the front plate, right? I was hoping that because I bought it in PA, that was some sort of justification. Turns out not so much, but I did. It's a calculation that I made, which is one, it's going to cost a certain amount of money to get a front thingy installed. And I'm not going to like the way it looks, because I like the way my car looks right now. And for the most part, I'm following the rules, right? I speed occasionally, but other than that, I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm not going to do anything that's going to get me in trouble. And so it's a calculation that I made that if I occasionally get pulled over or get a ticket for one or both of those things, I would pay the ticket. And that's just the cost of having my car look the way that I like it to look. Because you don't get points, you don't get anything.
Put on the dashboard, can't you? Can you put on your dashboard?
Yeah, I don't know, but I wouldn't.
I see people do that.
I've seen them do it when they've had specific issues, but I wouldn't drive all the time with my license plate on my dash. I'd rather pay. That's fine with $70, right? So I'd pay $70 every 3 years rather than drive with my license plate sitting in the dash. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, you just got to figure out if it's a primary offense or not. Otherwise,
here's the thing. Even if it turns out it's a primary offense, I've had the car for maybe 3 years now, something like that. And so apparently I've been pulled over twice, right? According to him, I don't remember the warning, but let's say I got pulled over twice and I got one ticket, right? And so let's say going forward, when I get pulled over, I'm going to get both of them, right? They're going to look it up and go, you've been warned about this, so you're going to get a ticket or whatever. Then we're talking $150 every 2 years. Maybe. I like the way my car looks. I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not.
But, by the way, now you're taking a chance of your initial concern, which is anytime you get pulled over, you're concerned about getting out of that alive. Now you're taking a risk by having no license plate because you like the aesthetics on the car and putting yourself into a position where you're now putting yourself almost in a dangerous situation. Let's intentionally go down to the most dangerous part of Baltimore at 2 a.m. with cash hanging out. And let's just take the risk because I like how it looks when I walk around with cash hanging out.
Scenario are you talking about right now? First of all, if I'm in a dangerous part of Baltimore,
you're putting yourself in an intentional situation.
I'm not worried about the cops. Like if I'm in I'm not worried about the cops.
That's what I'm saying. No. I'm saying you're intentionally putting yourself in a position that you think is already dangerous. And that dangerous situation is being pulled over in the first place.
So
why not avoid that scenario from happening?
I don't disagree.
You're thinking I just pay a fine and I'm fine. That's you should from the topic that we're having at the beginning. You're worried about being pulled over at all, and now you're like, I'll pay the fine. Are you going to get out alive? So
here's what I would say.
For the aesthetics of a vehicle.
What I would say is, I think that being a 50-year-old person, right? Black man, but 50-year-old person, I think makes a difference, right? If I'm young, I think they're going to treat me a little bit differently. I also think that I do everything in my power to make it a non-threatening encounter with the officer, right? One, they run your license plate, right? So they have information on you. They know where you live, probably know some amount of your criminal record before they pull you over. If if you happen to be the owner of the vehicle, your driving record, they all of that, I'm assuming they see pretty quickly, and they're going to see nothing for me, right? They're going to see no criminal record. They're going to see, I haven't had a moving violation in quite a while, so I'm pretty sure I have 0 points for a long, long time on my record. So my assumption is that if they see that, even though they may see a black guy, right? If they see that, and I roll all my windows down, which is what I do, and I'm respectful, which I am, right? And I give them no reason to think I'm a threat other than if they already think I'm a threat because I'm a black man. I am confident that I can navigate that situation in a way that will get me out of there safe. And the other part is I live in Columbia, Maryland, right? So I live in an area that is a very diverse community that is very, I don't know what the word is, but there's a word for just welcoming of the different people. It was created. It's a planned community that was meant to be a diverse community, and they have succeeded in that. And so I don't have any fear of police in my neighborhood, and in Columbia, so in my area. So if I'm driving other places all the time, I might be. By the way, this particular one, I was in Southern Maryland, right? So yeah, and here's the other part. You want to hear the other part? So not only did I get pulled over, but another police officer was coming up on. I was in the right lane. This was 5 minutes after I got pulled over. I'm still on Route 2 or 3 or whatever it is down there, 301, whatever it is. And another police officer comes up in kind of an unmarked truck. You know what I'm saying? It took me a second to realize there was a police officer, but he's come flying up in the passing lane. And all of a sudden he slams on brakes and stays behind me, sort of in my blind spot. And I didn't realize there was a police officer immediately. And so I sort of just started paying attention. I was like, what the hell is this person doing? And they just stayed. There was nothing. There was nobody in front of them. There was people in front of me, but there was nobody behind me that they were dealing with. I was like, they're looking at me. And so my guess is they probably saw that I had just gotten pulled over 5 minutes. That's my guess. I don't know. I just got pulled over 5 minutes ago and they left me alone, but I think they were going to mess with me. So I say that to say that if I'm in other parts, I may be a little more cautious, and if I'm in other parts frequently, then I may be a little more cautious and maybe take myself off of people's bullseye. But in Columbia, dude, the cops here are actually very reasonable. I've never had an encounter with a cop in Howard County where I was fearful. At least as far as I can remember. Maybe when I was a kid or something, I don't know, but not as an adult. It's just not what happens here for the most part. There are some stories. I just read a book called Losing John, which is about a guy that was my sister's age that went to Oakland Mills High School. And apparently he had some negative interactions with the cops, and there was some lawsuits going on. And he had a suspicious death, right? So, in the book, they didn't solve it, but it was suspicious. And so I don't know if, things changed after that point, if that was sort of a rogue situation, but I will tell you that in my experience in Columbia, which is part of the reason why we came back, I've never had any issues with the cops. They get behind me. I don't get the elevated heart rate when a cop gets behind me in Columbia. I just don't. Somewhere else, different story. But in Columbia, don't get an elevated heart rate. I'm not worried about the cops here. I think if you're going to be a police officer in this area, you're going to have to be the right kind of police officer. So.
What's the difference between that and Prince George?
PG County? Well, the cops in PG County are probably black because it's primarily black in PG County. So my guess is that probably less. I would assume the black cops are less racist. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm saying you haven't had a problem there.
No, not in PG County. No, but I'm not in PG County a ton. But I have no problem in PG County. I don't have a ton of problems with cops. I don't get pulled over.
You got to go down there for work. You go down there for work, though, don't you? I mean, that's. Oh, you don't drive down there.
I don't drive. No. I don't drive down to DC every day, man. I take to public transportation, man. I will murder people if I have to drive every day 2 hours back and forth, 2 hours each way, essentially, hour and a half each way. I mean, I would be so upset. I can't do it, man. I can't do it.
That's just a term. It's not real. He hasn't done it yet. So
no, not actually, just figuratively murder people, especially the person in the left lane going the speed limit. They deserve whatever comes to them, those people. And if you're one of them, I'm not even apologizing. You deserve whatever comes to you.
I was going home one time. This is back here in Dallas and on the tollway. And there was a state trooper in the middle lane going the speed limit. The speed limit, let's say 70. He was going 70. So I set my cruise control for 73. Not 75, 73. Because I was like,
what was the speed limit again?
I can't. 70.
Okay. All right. Speed limit 70. He's going
speed
70.
Limit 70.
Okay. You set your cruise
I go,
control
and there's a
for
line.
73.
There's a line. No one's passing this guy. No one's passing this guy. So I hit it to 73. And as soon as my front bumper passes him, the lights come swirling on and he pulls me over. And I'm driving a white pickup truck at this time.
Mhm.
And he pulls me over, state trooper. And I was like, well, what's the problem, sir? And he's like, can I see your driver's license? And I hand him it over and he goes back and he runs it and comes back. And he's like, okay, just stay safe, man. You know, speed limit 70. And I was like, yeah, wasn't I going 73? And he's like, well, yeah. And then he had to be myself and walked away.
Wait.
So it's like, I don't know.
Wait, I didn't hear what you said after. Wait, hold on. I didn't hear what you said after you said to him, wasn't I going 73? You broke up. What'd you say?
Yeah, he just smiled at me and said, yeah. And then had to be myself and walked away. That was the whole thing. I don't know if he thought that, you know, the white trucks around here are usually worker trucks, you know, usually construction trucks or something, you know. So I don't know if he was looking for something else. There was no other interaction. That was it. Speed limit 70 and I was going 73. So there wasn't a warning. There wasn't anything other than, hey, speed limit 70. Let's try to keep it there.
So here's the thing. I think there's a difference. I think if he's on the side of the road with a speed gun, a radar, I think he doesn't pull you over. But if he's driving 70, what I'm guessing he's doing is trying to keep traffic at or under the speed limit. And so so I think if you were defying his effort to try to keep traffic under speed, that's probably why he did it. Not because 73 is some egregious thing, right? But because he was clearly trying to say, don't go faster than this. This is the speed limit. And you were like, F you, you know, and you went past him.
I will never pass a state trooper again. I mean, that's my lesson learned is no, especially in Texas. If they want to, and I asked a cop friend of mine, you know, I said, is this normal? And he's like, no, but he probably wanted to show you that he was in charge of that highway at that time.
Yeah, like I agree.
That's all it was, you know. So, but there was no other interaction, nothing like, hey, you want to get out of your car, kind of look around, or any of that stuff. You know, it was done, you know. So, and my tail, I mean, the bed of my truck's all covered. You know, I have a cover for that as well, and there was no other conversation. You know, I admitted I was going 73. I didn't feel at the moment I was going to get a ticket for doing any of that either. That was it. That was a whole interaction. But again, I have no qualms with questioning the police officer. And that's how we should all feel, though. I believe that's how everyone should feel, is you should feel safe. I mean, the police are there to protect you, and they shouldn't be fearful of every time coming up to a car that something's going to happen. Now, that's in their training. They may prepare for it, but it's something that they shouldn't be every time they're walking up to a car thinking that something bad's about to happen to them. So.
Well, I agree, but I also think, and I'm not a great historian, but I also understand that the nature of the history of police forces in the United States are that they were designed to deal with specific parts of society, specific people in society. They were protecting some and going after another part. So that even though there was, you know, a lot of people have this idea that they're there to protect you. Well, historically, they weren't always there to protect everybody. They were specifically there to protect certain people. So protect the white people. They were there to protect the white people from everybody else. And so if you're everybody else, you're the people they're coming after. And so your interactions with them were as suspected criminals, not as the public that were there to be protected. And so all those people that were targeted learned they're not there for us. Right. And so when we engage with them as the ops, right? Not as somebody who's, they're here. If I'm good, they're here to take care of us. That's not been the case. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think that's the case now. Right. I think now society has evolved and grown. That doesn't mean there aren't pockets. That means there aren't individual people or police officers that still have issues. But I don't think that that's the norm. But you got to remember, a lot of this stuff is taught to you young, is part of sort of your cultural background, to not trust certain groups of people, the same way that a lot of times Black people don't trust medical institutions, because at some point, Black people were the guinea pigs for these medical institutions against our will and unbeknownst to us. right? When you think about, the Tuskegee experiment, my memory's terrible, but the Tuskegee experiment, you think about Henrietta Lacks, right? We were their guinea pigs. We were their test tube babies or dummies for decades and decades and generations and generations. And so we learned not to trust those institutions. So then when you see that even for people who don't, for minorities that don't have, issues with violent death and things like that, they end up having a lower life expectancy because we don't go to the medical institutions and think they're there to help us. We do everything we can to stay away from them because our experience is that when we go to them, bad things happen. And so it's going to take, just like it took hundreds of years for that to be, for that belief, understanding, whatever you want to call it, to be created, it's going to take hundreds of years to get of it not being the case for people to stop believing that. So it's just going to take time.
Isn't that interesting? Because I would say for white people, we've always trusted and believed the doctors, and we go get our medicines, we go get our vaccines, and we do what we need to do until COVID. And all of a sudden, we don't believe in vaccines anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, how did this generation just change that? Where science is a real thing. I saw a bumper sticker that's great. It's like, science, it's like magic, but real, but it's sad where we're in a generation where we don't believe science. And I mean, this goes back to not believing that there's any changes in the weather patterns, but we're having the worst floods and storms ever. And because they call it heating, people make jokes about it, global warming. Oh, but it's freezing here. Oh, but it's over raining here. It's like, okay, but you're taking the ignorant, easy path out instead of actually listening to science. And science used to be respected. I would say, at least in the white community, it was always, you learn it in school. You study it. You want to be a doctor. You want to be a scientist. You want to go to NASA. All those things. And now they're all under attack within our own society, and it's led mostly by white people. You don't hear a lot of black people saying no to science, no to medicine.
Well, you do though, but but you actually, you do for different reasons, but you do hear that.
Right. But it wasn't like, okay, the COVID is available, but let's only get the black people to take it first. That wasn't what was going on, and I would get it where if that was the situation, if we were just in Atlanta, New Orleans, DC, and said, this is the only places that COVID vaccines are available to see if it works. But that wasn't the case. It was like, let's get it into the old people. Let's get into the people most vulnerable, and it still had a fear in a way that never happened before. Like in the 1920s when we had the great breakout, every American stood in line to get their shot, to get everything taken care of. And that was your civic duty. As a citizen of the world, you get your shot. And you don't think science has jumped 100 years to be a little bit better and we can get things done a little bit faster? And now we're more scared of it now than we were 100 years ago?
Well, that's because science has advanced, but common sense has not. Right. And so, yeah, sure, it's better. But, I think people get dumber and dumber by the year, unfortunately. We may get more intelligent as beings, but we also get dumber as people. And you can't, sometimes you just can't overcome dumb, man, and oftentimes
listening to the wrong people. I think we're listening. And that wasn't around there 100 years ago. It was do this. And you didn't have enough people that were ignorant, given their perspective, that was able to get out there. You couldn't get in the newspapers back then and say, this vaccine isn't a real vaccine. We don't need to be taking it. This is just a setup, by the government. They didn't have a voice. They were on the fringes. Right. Now those people have voices, and ignorant people who don't do their own research listen to them.
Well, the interesting part is I would say that that's why I don't say ignorant, I say dumb. But it's probably better to say ignorant.
I say ignorant because it's what you don't know.
But here's the thing. But they think that they've done a bunch of research that proves themselves right. So so I would say, what I would say is that probably the average anti-vaxxer has done more research about vaccines than the average non-anti-vaxxer. The person who just goes, I'm sure they're good and I take them. Right. So that's why I say it's not ignorance. It's it's dumb because you're believing dumb stuff, right? You're researching, but you're researching the wrong stuff. You're listening to the wrong people. You're not using your common sense, right? Just because something is written, you got to use your own common sense to sort of determine, does this make sense? Is this a credible source? So I would say that those people think they're actually smarter than everybody else.
Yes.
Right.
Who's their source? John in the car talking during his lunch break?
There's some BS studies and stuff out there. They go, look, with the advent of now, by the way, I have not done my own research about vaccines, so I can't say exactly what the research is, but it's something along the lines of, as vaccine usage has gone up, so has autism. And they decide that it's not correlation. It's not correlation. It's causation, right? It's not just that two things happen at the same time. No. They're connected. Those two things, this thing caused that thing to happen, even though there's no evidence my understanding, because I haven't done the research. It's hard to prove a negative, right? You can't really prove there's no evidence. You can only say that you haven't found any evidence, right? And that people who do this for a living and have looked for it haven't found any evidence. But you can never say there is no evidence, because there might be a single speck of evidence that nobody has seen or most people haven't seen, right? So, but yeah, that's why it's hard to prove a negative. That's why it's easy to be a conspiracy theorist, because you can't really unprove a theory, right? Those sort of theories. You can't prove that it's not possible that they're accurate. Yeah. You just have to recognize that if you are a reasonable, intelligent human being, you would not think that way. At least that's the way I say it. I'm very judgmental.
And I believe autism's been around long before it was diagnosed as anything.
Yeah, facts,
I think it's been around forever, but people just called the people slow. They called the people introverted. They probably called them antisocial, didn't know how to communicate, but it wasn't connected to anything until it became a diagnosed thing. And it's like, well, now let's see if we can connect the dots. We can't. Here's the problem with certain doctors even coming out saying that this is what caused it is what's the old joke in the medical field? What do you call a C- doctor when he's graduating medical school?
I don't know what.
Doctor.
Oh,
that's a problem. You got ignorant doctors making it through, unfortunately, and then having their own theories and opinions on things that they couldn't even do biology well in class. So, and that's the scary part is you get one doctor that someone says, that sounds right to me.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you're going to take the one over the hundreds.
Right.
But it's just interesting how society has changed. So I understand how the concerns that the Black community has over the testing that happened to them decades ago, but it's something that's still taught and still understood within those communities as well.
Absolutely.
So, and I wonder how this COVID situation of the anti-vaxxers are going to affect the white community as time goes on. And I think we're already starting to see it. In Texas, we had a big increase in what was it? Mumps, measles.
Because people weren't getting
the vaccines. Yeah. So now you're seeing how it's affecting the next generation. They're dying, they're getting sick, and they're believing science that isn't there, to the point where even the government finally came out and who were anti-vaxxers who said the only thing that can fight this is the vaccine. So I think it's something that is surprising to me more than anything else, that a whole section of society now doesn't believe science anymore.
So my question for you is, and I'm gonna take the children out of it for a second, right? The concept of the kids suffering. But if somebody doesn't believe in vaccines and they don't get vaccinated and then they die from the thing that they didn't get vaccinated on, how devastated are you as a bystander to that situation?
None at all. No,
you know what I'm saying? Like they were the cause. They were the cause of their own demise, right? So I'm not going to be all that. Now the kids are different, but also, so if they die as a kid, that's great. But if they grow up, they get to make their own decisions. I know the problem is that when things are impressioned upon you as a child, right, taught to you as a child, it's hard to get rid of those things as an adult, right? Think about religion. Most of the time people have a religion because that's what they were taught as a child, not because they got to like 20 years old. It was like, let me assess all of the stuff out there and decide what I want to do. That's not what happens most of the time. And so it's hard to do it the same way that we just talked about how, African-Americans don't trust, a lot of African-Americans don't trust medicine because of the history and what they've been taught. But if you look at it now as an adult, you would think that I could realize that there should be some aspects that I should find enough information out there to be able to trust, but it doesn't happen. So I feel bad for those kids, but ultimately, once they become adults, they at least have the ability to make their own decisions, and I'll stop feeling bad for them. and they'll suffer the consequences of their own decisions. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So then,
I think that's why you see the attack on education as it is now, because the kids will go and learn things that are contrary to what they're taught at home. And then once those people get in power, they eliminate those teachings so that people aren't questioning their ignorance. And unfortunately, that's where we're moving in society, where we thought there was guardrails out there that would protect the kids and protect society as a whole, and democracy and the way that we think about things in the U.S. We're seeing the guardrails aren't as strong as they are when people just believe civic duty was civic duty. And this is what it means to be an American, and this is what it means to be in a good society. And some people feel like to be in a good society, I have to control what you think and believe, instead of saying, there's different opinions out there, go figure it out and go study and go learn. Because what I could be saying might be wrong. I could be teaching my kids the wrong things because I didn't get an education, or I dropped out of school in 5th grade, or I just believe whatever I see on TV or on the internet. You and I grew up in a time when the internet was just coming out. So we were taught, don't believe everything you see on the internet. I don't think the kids are taught that anymore. I think that's left out. I think they just say, go try to find trusted sources when you're doing this paper, or when you're doing your research, or whatever the case might be. Or they're not teaching it at home, because my kid will come up to me sometime and go, someone found a 500-pound frog. I go, yeah, that's not true. So that's AI. Yeah, it's a great story, but that's not true. And they have to start hearing it at our level. But if their parents are saying, wow, that's amazing, someone found a 500-pound frog, now the ignorance starts at home, and they want it to continue through school, unfortunately.
Yeah, and well, one, I think that it is very hard nowadays to understand the difference between information and disinformation. And I think it's an unfortunate circumstance to be in, because a lot of time the disinformation looks just as credible, gets elevated just as much, has just as many people believing it and following it as what could be considered factual information, which is why you get into this whole alternate facts and all that sort of stuff. But I think the other
Which used to be called lies, by the way. Alternate facts used to be called lies. Thank you.
I know. But the other thing is, I think that there's a nefarious element to this, because not only is it a function of things I don't believe that I think shouldn't be taught, it's a function of things I don't like. I may know 100% it's true, but I don't like it. And therefore, I think it needs to be, washed out of society. And I think that is even more dangerous, because this is willful, disregard for truth. And what that ends up leading to, it makes disinformation that much easier. It makes it easier for people to be ignorant, as opposed to being willful about it. So the people that are whitewashing it now, those are willful folks. But the people that now get the whitewashed version sometime in the future, the kids now, they're just going to be ignorant. They're not going to know, right? And so I think it is very, very dangerous what is happening with the idea of, if I don't like something, I get to decide that it is in fact not true. Not I can say I don't like it and I can talk about why I don't like it, but no, I'm going to go, that doesn't count anymore because I don't like it. And I think that is a dangerous thing, because now we end up living in these very different worlds, where one kid can grow up and what he's taught is so very different. I mean, I'm not talking about like what your religion is and things. I'm talking about like math and science and all those sort of, all of a sudden it's very different. And I think that one is terrible for, our educational system, but I think two, is going to create all of these kids who are going to have, unfortunately, an awakening later on in life, that they're either ignorant because they weren't taught the right information or all of the information, or they're going to believe exactly what they were taught. And they're going to think that their reality, one, is everybody else's reality, but is ultimately the true reality. And I think it's just going to create more division in our society going forward. And that's the unfortunate part of it.
And with that subject, we could go down a wormhole of all the craziness that's happening today. But I would say this has been a good first segment. What do you think, man?
I think it's good, man. I think the question, these are conversations that we have. So this is always good stuff. I think the question becomes, does anybody else care? That's going to be the question. We have to figure that out.
That's it. Yeah. Is it interesting enough?
Yes,
Also,
right. You know what I'm saying? It's like I said, just because you enjoy the sex doesn't mean other people will enjoy watching you have sex, right? So we shall see. I enjoyed having sex with you today, oral sex with you today. That sounds terrible, but
I'm never going to use that expression. I don't think I will ever.
You know what? We should change this to the oral sex podcast.
We're probably never going to do that. That's not going to be a thing.
I'm just saying.
No, maybe
people would watch it more. People might watch it more. They'd be like,
they would be highly disappointed when they click on it. No,
say that again.
No. They'd be highly disappointed when they logged into it and found out what it was. So,
well, maybe we could. Maybe we have to change it up, and maybe we got to give them what they want.
Bait and switch. We're not doing that.
I'm saying give them what they want. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be willing.
So first of all, I'm living in Texas and you're living in Maryland, so some of that would be kind of challenging in that way. So
I can make that work. I can make that work from Maryland to Texas, bro. You know what I'm saying? You ever see like Florida? You know what I'm saying? The way it hangs down, bro. I'm just saying. You gotta. Way it is, bro. See, speechless. That's what I'm talking about. That's
the
how you do it.
The words have lost me. Yes, but this has been good. I hope it's impactful. Maybe people haven't heard these kind of conversations before with people like us out there, and maybe it'll resonate. Or maybe it just hit a button with somebody who could completely disagree with what we said.
At the very least, our close family and friends better watch this. Y'all better watch this. We better get like 5 views. We're going to get 5 views. I'm going to be upset about that. But we should talk about our sponsors. Do you have a sponsor? Sponsor you want to talk about?
You may go first.
Okay, so this podcast has been sponsored by the On Second Thoughts podcast, or On Second Thought show, has been sponsored by the GMC Collection on Etsy. The GMC Collection. Why have none of you bought my shirts? That's the GMC Collection on Etsy. It's also been sponsored by Elevate with Bish Bates. Public speaking. Why are you not hiring me to be your public speaker? That's both of our things. That's both of our things. Is why are you not hiring? Why are you not buying our stuff? So that's our ad right there for us. What's your sponsor, Eric?
Check out Eric Richie Consulting. It'd be great to help you with your operations and how things run a little smoother sometimes. So you want to grow, but you don't know how. So
absolutely, Eric Richie Consulting. Do you have a website, Eric?
I do not have a website yet. That's extreme effort work.
It is under construction, if I understand that correctly. Eric Richie Consulting website is under construction, correct?
You are correct. That is something.
But BishBates.com is not under construction, so you can go check out BishBates.com. BishBates.com motto is the same as others. Why are you not hiring me? That's my motto.
That's the motto. That's the motto. Okay. That's going to be a great opener every time.
Why have you not hired me yet? That's the motto. Yes. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let me do the outro.
You've been listening to On Second Thought with Eric Richie and Bish Bates, where it's never too late to rethink, rewind, and revisit the conversation. If you laughed, learned, or had your own On Second Thought moment, go ahead and subscribe, share, and leave us a review. We want to hear your thoughts, even if you change them later. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at On Second Thought Show and join the conversation. Until next time, keep thinking, keep growing, and don't be afraid to say, you know what? On second thought,